Greetings and felicitations.
Hip hip hurrah, tally ho.
Hey, baby doll.
Hey, Pud.
What are we going to talk about today? What episode of Star Trek Lower Decks are we going to discuss?
This one is called Crisis Point.
Okay, let me just tell you this. I think so far this is the best episode out of the series. I like this one a lot better. What'd you think?
That's exactly what I think. I thought this one was the best one so far.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about the premise of the show.
It's basically a holodeck episode. But not one where there's a holodeck malfunction, though. So we have a Mariner who decides to take over the holodeck with her own program, which is basically using known characters from the ship, but Mariner herself is a villain who wants to kill everybody.
And what I loved about it is they're making, once again, more references to former Trek, and it was very creative because they're putting themselves in a holodeck, so in a movie essentially, and they're putting references to Star Trek 6 with the credits coming at them and ducking under the credits and the signatures on the credits. And
it was so funny.
I got it. I totally got it.
It was great.
I mean, they nailed it. They got those graphics perfect.
I mean, it was kind of like, how many references can you throw in? But it was still a good story with Vindicta. So Mariner, her character, she named herself Vindicta.
Which made me think of Kate Mulgrew's part, or
Chaotica.
Chaotica, yes.
Yes.
From Voyager.
It does ring of that as well. So the movie, her title of her movie she created on the holodeck was Crisis Point: The Rise of Vindicta.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cute. It's so neat.
I liked it.
So in some ways it is like this is the kind of holodeck fantasy some people would create. And I like how the Orion, Tendi, her idea of not wanting to be a stereotype, they made her.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
I really thought that was fantastic. Because how many times have we said that with certain races in the Star Trek universe, right? The Klingons are all warriors. We can't have the whole world be warriors. There has to be, and as Deep Space Nine showed, there's singers, there's cooks. There's a little bit of everything. You need some variety of personality, of skill sets, what have you. So, I mean, to make an entire race of women, that's all they're going to do is be part of the slave trade. I think it made total sense for her to say, knock it off. I'm tired of this. Because everyone that's humans that are part of an ethnicity probably have some kind of stereotype associated with them, and they don't need to see that stereotype all the time in a program, in a movie, or reference to in real life. So I like that. It really added to her personality.
It did. It showed she wants to be a Starfleet officer. She wants to be that type of person, her own person.
Yes.
And
so again, we're going for development of character.
Yes.
Which is what I love about Star Trek. We had a Star Wars podcast some time ago, and we were talking with another Star Wars fan who also likes Star Trek, and he said, well, that's the thing that Star Trek has above Star Wars is you have a lot more time for character development with a television show as opposed to a movie. You have minimal time for character development with a movie. So I like little by little that we're getting these characters fleshed out a little bit more. I'm still on the line of, is this really part of the canon? I heard this one theory that this show is an in-universe show. This is an animated series that the crew of the Enterprise actually watches. So it's like us watching Family Guy, or it's us watching The Simpsons. Okay. So it's a TV show that Worf watches and a bunch of others. What do you think about that theory?
It could be. It almost sounds good, but there's the idea that some of these characters might actually be real-life characters that show up on Picard, and that would be good too. Like if this wasn't a TV show, but actually real characters in the universe, even though I know they're silly and everything, but
the absurdity level is so high that I have a hard time saying that this is actually part of the Star Trek universe. But that theory that it's a show within the Star Trek universe, I think makes more sense.
It actually does. And yeah, because I could kind of see some people, let me see who.
Right at the first episode, you remember Boimler took the Batleth and sliced the leg to the point where meat and flesh were coming out. You'd never have that in Next Generation, where you wouldn't have the half of someone's thigh cut off. I just think it's the level of absurdity is just too high
for it to be actually real.
Yeah,
I know what you
all
mean.
this feces
yes.
stuff that they talk about, cleaning out and all that. I just don't see that in the Next Generation universe. I think a lot of things are going to be automated. They're not going to have people doing jobs that no one wants to do. Right now, we have jobs that nobody wants to do, and they're automated. So, that's what I'm saying. I think that theory is good. I'm actually liking the show better thinking that, because I always think too hard about Trek. I'm always thinking about how does this fit into the timeline, the prime timeline that we know and love.
I know. I want it to, yeah, because I'm thinking of how every show fits in, and you naturally think that they all fit into the same timeline too, even though they don't have to. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless they actually say on the show that it is a different timeline,
like Kelvin or something
right.
like that. Yes. So I like the premise. I thought it was well executed. I've said it before. I'm not a fan of Mariner. I just think she's so over the top, so annoying. But this was an expression for her in this episode that made sense for her personality.
She got some character development in this one.
Yes.
We find out more about her and her mother. So her mother, what is it? Her mother's actually protecting her, because she could be drummed out of Starfleet. And it's so weird because we know her mother, like from the first episode, her mother didn't want her on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's kind of, like they're saying her mother is really the only reason she's still there.
Yeah. So, we're only one episode away from the final episode of the season. Short season, only 10 episodes. I think
Which
that
is,
in itself is kind of strange. For such a short show, it's less than a half hour. I'm surprised they don't make more.
They must have had some reason. I mean, really probably just because they want to go ahead and get Discovery on.
But also, in COVID, they can make this all behind the scenes. They don't have to have the actors get together. There's really no need for real life in this show, or minimum real life interactions.
It's all recorded, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you know how we've heard about the music, like recording for Discovery takes so much longer because each person is playing the instrument separately.
Yes,
and it takes a lot more time for someone to put it together.
But we were eating the Captain Crunch Peanut Butter Crunch during this episode, and that's a classic. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? We're eating the right cereal for this because this harkened back to more classic Next Generation or classic Voyager. We're getting the feel of the story a little bit more into what we're comfortable with in the Star Trek universe. What do you say? You
mean with this particular episode?
Yes.
The story? Yeah, because it had more character development, and because it was, like it wasn't even a mission. It's people learning about themselves just when they're just trying to have fun.
Yes. And even just something small. I know in TNG it wasn't consistent early on, which is a huge frustration of mine, of the holodeck. Could the holodeck figures and characters and items stay on the deck or leave the deck? But it was established later on that the holograms cannot go past the doors of the holodeck. And you remember when Tindy left the holodeck, she was covered in holographic blood, but once she leaves and goes down the corridor, the blood disappears.
And so
I like that. These people know Trek better than some of the other modern day Trek producers.
Exactly, yes.
Or at least they're trying harder to work within established guidelines.
And this one, we also got to see a ship's counselor. But what species was he?
I don't know.
He was a bird, and
Yes.
we can't tell. Yeah, he didn't look like anything we've seen on Star Trek, not even similar.
The closest that I could think of was in motion picture. The Rigelians, they kind of look like turtles. They were greenish with a hood on with the big yellow beak. And it was the Rigelians that were on the trading cards. They were never shown on screen.
Yes, it could have been that.
It was one of the
yeah.
behind-the-scenes things that they made and really wasn't published. They didn't do anything else with it. So, it's one of those deep-cut aliens. So that was the closest thing, but it wasn't. But I think it was a great job, this episode. So I'm seeing more light at the end of the tunnel. So it's either me warming up to it more, or the show's, the way the direction that they're going, I think is more cohesive to the Star Trek universe at this point.
Another thing was that they only had one storyline in this one instead of usually having 2 or 3 storylines.
Yes.
And this one, so they were able to develop the story more, which worked very well.
Unless you want to consider the therapy sessions, would that be a B storyline or just a minor side?
I didn't think so. I thought it was part of it because it was the same characters that it was about. So we had other references. Now they mentioned Zahn in this, which was funny.
Great reference to an unproduced Star Trek show.
A character that was created for Phase 2, which was, the Star Trek show that they never made, but they were going to back in the 70s. And they created the Vulcan named Zahn because they didn't think Leonard Nimoy was going to return to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And the spelling of it is X-O-N, and it's pronounced Zahn. When I was watching this show and they kept talking about Zahn, I did not really know who they were talking about at the time. It's one of those names that I always know when I see it spelled out. But hearing someone say it, I was thinking, who? And then I read about it. Yeah.
I absolutely love these references.
And they also showed, and the coffin.
Yeah, like the torpedo tube coffins.
Yes. Mariner's movie reaches the closing scene with Vindicta rising out of the coffin. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And having when they showed the saucer section, I mean, that's what it looked like, but it was a ship crash landing. But it reminded me of the movie Generations, when the saucer section separated.
Oh, I didn't even put that together. That's true, though. I see what you're saying.
Yes, when the saucer section landed on that planet, or crashed.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they had the lens flares. And in this case you could tell the lens flares were added just to reference the JJ movies and Discovery with all the lens flares.
Yes.
It was funny.
That was done on purpose. Yes. We both noticed that and laughed at it. Yeah.
One other thing, they mentioned the Soleil and the Antikins. Actually, they actually showed them in this episode. They're from the episode Lonely Among Us.
Early first series,
yes,
first season.
Yes.
We have the action figures, the Gloob action figures of them. So,
yes,
always
another
looking,
great reference.
Yes,
okay.
Always looking for something like that. Yes. So, great episode. Now we go into our next episode.
No small parts.
All right. Let's talk about the premise of the show.
Okay, now, first of all, this is the season finale.
And I didn't realize that until like an hour before watching it. I was like, wow, this is only 10 episodes. That's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I don't know if they got interrupted by COVID or if they planned it that way.
Yeah, I didn't look ahead. I only half paid attention to how long the season was going to run. Curious for an animated series why it wouldn't be longer. But previously I was complaining that it's too long, that it should be here and there. But after watching this episode, I have to say, they knocked it out of the park. I'm really a fan now. It took some time.
Oh, great. Right? I know. I mean, I felt like the episodes were getting better and better. It's actually kind of sad that the best one is over, and like now the season's over, and who knows how long we'll have to wait for the next season.
But we both agreed that this was the fun one.
Yes, it was. Yeah, this one you were actually laughing for a change.
Yeah. All right. The premise?
So in this episode, the Cerritos encounters an enemy ship that's an amalgam of different kinds of ships. And also we have Tendi, who helps an exocomp who was actually a new crewman aboard the ship.
Oh, I love seeing the exocomp. I was one of the ones that I love the exocomps.
It's so neat because this show has always had references to other episodes. So this one just had so many. Well, this one was actually built on it. In fact, we should have started with the teaser. So on this one, the teaser is when they're back on Beta 3, which was from the episode Return of the Archons.
Oh, yeah, and that's another thing. We were excited. We thought the whole episode would be about that.
Oh,
I don't want to say I was disappointed, but I was kind of hoping we'd get more information.
That was so strange what they said. So the people on the planet started back worshiping Landru. I mean, how could that happen? I thought Kirk basically destroyed the computer, made it self-destruct.
Mm-hmm.
And so somehow the computer's back up and running, and these people are worshiping it again. But,
I loved that episode as a kid.
It was a great episode.
Absolutely. So to make a reference there, to go back to that planet, I was expecting the entire... And I'm one of those people, I don't watch trailers. I want to be surprised. And so I was thoroughly surprised by this, because I figured the episode would be about that, about the return of the Archons.
It should have been, really, but it's so strange. But the people said that, like on the planet, even though they're worshiping Landru, they said they don't have the red hour anymore, which I suppose is an improvement. Or maybe not, because I don't know how the people are going to have any kind of release without that, but it's good that they don't have all that violence anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And Mariner took advantage of that. She was giving things away to the people.
Oh, and she was being recorded, so everyone on the bridge heard what she was saying, heard what Boimler was saying.
So that leads into the next plot point. So then Boimler says that he knows that the captain is her mother, and everyone on the bridge was listening. So now everyone, I mean, basically, like, this means everyone on the ship is going to know that Freeman is Mariner's mother. And so that is a big part of this episode, a big part of this story.
Because it was hidden throughout the entire season. We as the viewers knew it from episode 1, but everyone on the ship didn't know it.
And so but it did turn out well. I mean, I think it's great that they decided to work together in the end.
Yes.
So now, and see, now we want to know what's going to happen in the next episode. So how are they going to work through this? But Mariner has decided to stay where she is, you know, as a lower decks person, but still help her mother, because they can still work together.
Mm-hmm.
And be these different personality types and still help each other.
A lot of throwbacks, but this time it wasn't just gratuitous. It actually made the storyline go forward. We had a return of the Packlets. And
the Packlets have always been popular, too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they were only shown on one episode, the Samaritan Snare. But they made an impression, because it's all of this, we are not smart. And, you know, those things. Oh, and what's funny was how the Packlets think that every ship in Starfleet is the Enterprise. I loved that. I mean.
And the idea of taking pieces of ships and building a super ship out of it.
Yeah, and imagine that they can do that. So, yeah, they're actually smarter than you think. I mean, because they built this super ship, and who else has done that? I mean, so that was pretty neat. So they actually have become successful, I mean, as scavengers.
Mm-hmm. And that little exocomp, Peanut Hamper.
Oh, Peanut Hamper.
And I was calling you my little Peanut Hamper all morning, and you were saying, don't call me that.
I mean, it's silly, even though I guess it was fitting for the exocomp. But yeah, that is such a great idea, to have an exocomp as a crew member. I think the closest thing I've seen would be because I know in the Titan, and of course we'll get to Titan too, but in the Titan books, they have an AI that's a crew member. And so to me, it kind of pulled off of that. Mm-hmm. But of course we do remember the exocomp episode of TNG, the little ball that floats around, and I think she, you know, it was a she, we could say in this episode. Mm-hmm. The way she fit in was pretty cool too. Oh, and then the thing about not being able to lift things when she was trying to pick up something and just rolling it, that was funny.
That was funny.
And then the way she was able to do surgery, and the doctor
was great.
Was so impressed, all of that. But then what did you think about, you know, not wanting to die, so she wouldn't help them in the end and just decided to leave? I mean, who in Starfleet would do that? So I guess she wasn't quite the perfect crewman then.
Mm-hmm.
And then the little joke at the end about how she was floating in space and saying help. So she wasn't this great thing that she thought she was. She kind of learned a lesson like other people do.
I love the fact that we saw a reference to the animated series with the picture of Kirk and Spock. And it was specifically drawn in that style.
It was probably an actual picture from the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that was neat. So this is a cartoon show, and this is how they see Kirk and Spock as these animated characters. That was pretty cool. So now getting to what I mentioned about the Titan. So the USS Titan.
Oh, I love seeing that.
So we know that the name of the ship is canon. It was in the movie Nemesis.
But we're fans of the book series.
Right. So but the movie Nemesis says that Riker became captain of the Titan. And then they made a whole book series on it.
Mm-hmm.
And
the Titan, if you read the book series, it has multiple decks of all different environments. So it is a true Federation starship in the sense that people or crewmen from all different species can live on there. Different gravities, different types of atmospheres. It's really fascinating.
It was the most diverse crew that they
By
had in
far.
Starfleet.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly, and in a book they can do so much more with that than you can in live action.
Yes.
But of course on an animated show they could do a lot with it too.
And that was my huge frustration with Deep Space Nine. With, was it Melora? She was supposed to be a crew member that was in a wheelchair, but they couldn't afford to make the scenes on a regular basis. So instead of having her a regular crew member, they made just one episode.
They did, yeah. But then she became a regular crew person on the Titan.
Correct.
In the books.
And that's what makes these books fantastic. You could do there's no budget with the books.
Yeah, definitely. They had one crewman that was aquatic, that had to be in water all the time.
Yes.
So yeah, a lot of different things there. But so with the Titan in this episode, we got Riker and Troy, and they actually had and this was something that they were able to keep a secret. Like usually
they did a great job keeping this.
Usually
secret.
they release these things about who's going to be, on an episode, but this time we did not know that Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis would actually be back doing the voices of their famous characters.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, we cheered. Yes, we were so happy to see them.
Great depiction.
Yes.
Fantastic job. And even the depiction of the Titan, because that's a fan-produced design.
Yes, from the Titan books, in the first book, they said that they wanted to have a contest to see, who could design the Titan ship, and they would use that on the cover of the books. So they actually had, fan submissions, and there was the ship the one that won, and so they used that same design, the fan design that was used on the book covers in this episode. And they even used the same registry number that they used in the books.
I love that.
So this great part of the books actually got canonized. And we say canonized.
Yes.
Apparently, from all the talk, this is canon now. The show is canon.
But, again, my view of what canon is on here is that pseudo-canon. Being animated, I love it. I'm still having fun with it, though, and I respect it as such. But I'm great to see references to the books that they're respecting, that there was a lot of good things in the books. And when we see this era, Riker and Troy, they're wearing the gray outfits.
Yes.
Instead of the brightly colored ones that the Cerritos is wearing. So I imagine they're going to address why they have two different types of outfits. I don't know. Are they in transition again? Do ships like the Cerritos get a different color scheme, different style? I don't know.
Yeah, that could be something they talk about later. It seems like on this show, because we know we've seen other ships, the other ships wore the same
they sure did.
Uniform types as the Cerritos.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have to do with the class of the ship, or anything, or maybe it's captain's discretion. So Will just likes those the gray uniforms. So this episode also had Captain Dayton, Now, Captain Dayton was mentioned before, but I think this is the first time we actually got to see her.
Mm-hmm.
But then she died in this episode. But it was just neat that they had that name Dayton.
Yes.
And I mean, I associate it with Dayton Ward, who was one of the writers of Star Trek novels. He's an excellent writer, and he is an advisor for the Star Trek shows these days. But he said that it's just a coincidence that they used his name.
I loved all these deep dives going into the images that are being dropped, especially that 60s Remco helmet that said Spock on it. It was a label slap toy. It was so bizarre.
It was so neat that they threw that in.
Yes.
Yeah, so the old toy that came out a long time ago was actually in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And
quite a few other items were in there as well.
Yes.
Remember the spiked bald fist that was in the Next Generation
Code
episode?
of Honor.
Code of
that
Honor.
Episode.
Yes.
Yes, the
was in there.
mace and the. Yeah, I mean, it was neat that they throw these things in, and and having the bat'leth again. Oh, and it was great saying, because Mariner said that Riker is one of the people that helped her get all this stuff that she had stashed around the ship, and it's like I guess Riker could do that, and even saying that Riker and Mariner are friends. They already knew each other.
Yes, and Riker making the reference that he was in the holodeck watching the old Enterprise programs.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
Because it was already in canon that he did that on the Enterprise series. So yes, all of this stuff, they're making it all fit in such an interesting way, and it's like, and it's so exciting for us. They know how to feed us this stuff.
At this point, it feels like Seth MacFarlane is in the writing's room, because these people know what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You want to mention the other guy, yeah. But this is Mike McMahon, and he is a fan.
But I'm saying, when we watch Orville is very TNG-ish, and we say that's because Seth is a fan. We watch Discovery, and we're like, man, this doesn't even feel like Star Trek. What's going on here? So I like what they're doing here. Yes,
they did this one well. So it's kind of like they had to build up to this one.
Mm-hmm.
And Mariner, just to say this too, not only does she know Riker, but she has always seemed to know a lot of people. Going back to the episode where she knew the Klingon that they had to escort to another planet, and yeah, she seems to make a lot of friends. She seems to get around. And we have to mention Shax.
That was terrible.
Yeah,
I don't want to see him die.
Yeah, I could not believe they did that. So yeah, and
I didn't like that at all.
He was always a fan favorite, even though he was the guy that was always shouting and yelling at people. But
and I want Bajorans on the ship. I want to see different species working together. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, but the thing is, and why did he even have to die? Looking at the plot of what happened, Rutherford, so he saved Rutherford and threw him on that shuttle and let him go. I wanted Shax to get on the shuttle too, but he must have felt like he had to stay back to make sure that everything on that ship actually did go as planned, to make sure the ship really did get destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we will miss Shax. Maybe they'll find a way to bring him back. I don't know.
Boimler got a promotion, and he's going on the Titan.
Oh yeah,
that's
and
wild,
really,
isn't it?
So what's going to happen with that? Now we have to see like next season is. Maybe it'll be about Titan.
Well, both Deanna Troi and the actors, Marina Sirtis and Jonathan Frakes, they're still active in the Star Trek community, on the Star Trek shows. Obviously, they love lending their voices. So, I'm sure that we're going to see more of them, which I'm all for.
Yeah, so we'll have to see, because it might be that I hate to think that Boimler might mess up and get demoted and sent back to the Cerritos, but that could happen too.
Yeah, fantastic episode. It had a lot of references, even a reference to Sulu with the saber.
Oh,
all
the
over
sword,
the place. The
right?
sword, yes,
yeah.
It was great. There are so many times in this show that I liked the visual aspect of it. I loved the storyline to it. It wrapped things up, but it gave us something to look forward to.
Oh, and it had the music too. Did you notice the Jerry Goldsmith music?
Yes, and I was so happy about that.
It was awesome.
Because I'm not a big fan of this theme. It doesn't sound like a Star Trek theme. Whereas for the Lower Decks.
Okay. Yeah, you don't like the lower
It's
deck
just general. It's just general.
Okay.
I don't think it's iconic. It'll take some time to really grow on me. Whereas, of course, the Next Generation theme, it's exciting.
Definitely, yeah. So this episode was exciting. We loved this one.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.